Hey guys, Heavy Arms 45 here. Now I haven't did one of these in a while. It's another story time, and this is going back to my friends who were playing Pathfinder with me that I was the DM for. Now, the party for the most part had split at this point, like I think I said a while back. Um, a lot of the party was staying in a different area than where Zehuri and Yurichi were. So it was difficult to get their players to play with the other ones. Play with the other guys. So since they weren't playing with them anymore, I've now had two different campaigns. Um, Yurichi and Zahiri were by themselves, and their characters never questioned what happened to the rest of the party. I think basically Zahir thought that it was good riddance that they weren't around anymore because he started being kind of a conspiracy nut of thinking that other people in the party were trying to kill him. And yeah, he probably shouldn't have been around them. So he is trying to find a job because he wants money. He needs money, because he doesn't have a place to stay. Which brought up a different point that we didn't even think about. Every time we had them playing, we start a mission, they would go off and do so. And the question never came up of what are they doing until now. I'm like, where have y'all been sleeping at? And we realized they haven't been sleeping anywhere. They've just been been around town, then all of a sudden, mission comes up, they go to the mission. In game, I assumed that they had their own place that they were staying at, but I never asked where they were staying at because there are uh inns to stay at, but we never knew where they were staying at. That's my fault. So Zahiri is now um trying to get money to uh figure out how he's gonna pay for an inn. I'm pretty sure he did have a good amount of money, but like I said, he had a very strong desire to have money. So he was very greedy. So he didn't spend his money. He instead went out and tried to find a job to where he could get money. And so he heard about a group of attacks that were going on. People in different parts of, well, specifically in the southwest part of the city of Animea were being secretly kidnapped or, well, were going missing and things like that. And no one knew what was going on. So he, using his detective steals, skills, uh, goes in and starts investigating what exactly happened to these people. So as he's investigating, he comes by a cloak. The cloak is it looks somewhat torn. It has looks to be hair in it. Um he also um so he sees this. He walks around the house, doesn't he sees that the house seems to be torn up. There seems to be claw marks everywhere. And he feels like he knows of some wild animal that must have came here and did this. So he takes the cloak and puts it in his bag and proceeds to leave. Um, he here since he knew that there was another attack, since he talked to the city guards, he goes to the other one. He starts checking it out. About this point, his friend Luigi, Yurichi, wakes up from wherever she was sleeping at. We, like I said, never really explained where they were staying at. But she wakes up and decides to meet up with him. Um, and as she comes in, it's kind of like okay, he has this. Um, he's like, I don't know where to go with this. He basically the second house he goes to that these people that somebody was attacked at um is just completely torn up with. You can see the claw marks. There seems to be some blood on the ground. Um, there looks to be that there were no survivors. Um, he asked a couple questions about the place. As he understood, each one of the place had well, the first one that he went to was a husband and wife murdered, and the daughter was missing. At the second one he went to, which was a week or so before the other one, there was a husband and wife, and the wife was missing. But the husband was found uh, killed and maimed, and he's like, "Well, I don't know where else to turn." Zehuri is like this. He doesn't know what to do next. And then all of a sudden he starts itching as he has all these fleas that starts like just biting on him. And he's scratching. He realized that it's coming from the cloak he had put into his bag. So he decides that this is enough, goes into the tub of the house that he's in right there, and takes the soap that he has and proceeds to wash the uh well, not that he does he doesn't do it there, but he goes to the store, gets some flea powder, and proceeds to kill all the fleas off this thing and wash it till it's nice and clean. Well, out of game. You ever had a character that a player that you like, okay, let me give him a clue of what's going on. Let him like figure this out. And maybe this will help him to figure out. It's a subtle clue. But if you're looking at the detail, you realize that something's going on. This was my moment. This was the moment where Heavy Arms 45 was like, hey, it's a clue. Why don't you check out the clue? Maybe it'll help you. And he washed all the proof of what he needed to do, what he needed to progress the story away. So since he washed it away, all the DNA evidence, stuff that you could probably use to identify who did this, washed away, and he. So, as a DM, I had to find a different way of having it come up. And I think the way I did it was there was a mistake in one of the situations where there actually was more than one child. One child. There was actually a little boy who actually survived also. He hid while the creature came through. And so when the party comes in trying to figure out what happened at the house, when Zehuri and Yurichi comes and they talk to him and he tells them that it looked like wolves on 2 feet, they realize that it was werewolves. So the question comes up is, how do you figure out where the werewolves are? Well, you can't figure out where the werewolves are. So they decide to do something specifically weird. They decide to basically be a part of the guard, and by guarding that part of the city, um, they hope to find the person who, well, the werewolf, and where he's coming from to attack these people. Well, they find out there's about 3 days before next full moon, so they get a couple of things to help them to kill a werewolf. Of course, you need your silver. And yeah, they get their stuff. 3 days later, there's the full moon, and during the full moon, um, family is attacked. They hear the scream. They come and they stop them from taking the family, well, killing the husband and taking his wife. The wolf runs off. Oh no, the wolf is killed by them, but they were able to use a dog to basically sniff out and figure out exactly where he came from. So the uh, dog sniffed the wolf and followed his trail all the way back to where the lair of the wolves were. And they sneak up there, and Zehuri is walking on the ground, sneaking up there in the best way he can, which wasn't really that good. And Yurichi is flying in the air. The thing about this is that um, it wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as it could be because the werewolves didn't smell him coming up, but there was a wolf outside. He did spot Zahiri, and he fights Zahiri. Zahiri takes him out with relatively good, simple ease. It wasn't even difficult for him to do. And he goes into the cave because it's somewhat in the middle of the night and fights, I want to say, about 4 werewolves. Yurichi flies up close to the cave. She doesn't really fly into it. She kind of uses her fly ability and just floats her way up to the cave and starts casting spells. And she fireballs the heck out of all of them. And she misses what they see in the back of the room, which is a group of people, mostly women and little kids, that have the kids are asleep and the women are looking somewhat nervous. Um, so they kill all the werewolves, and about this point, after all this is done, because it took them probably about less than a minute, they took out all the uh, adult werewolves. The kids wake up and they all look kind of like they finna start crying, and they look upset. Oh no, something's wrong. And these little kids starts transforming into werewolves and starts trying to claw at Zahiri. And he realizes that each one of these kids are baby werewolves. They're cubs. And that some of the women that are sitting up there are pregnant. And it now becomes a moral dilemma. What does he do? As a good character, you want to stamp out evil. But you have a bunch of cublings. Are you that kind of monster to kill a bunch of baby werewolves? Would you do it? The answer is no. Yurichi did not kill the baby werewolves. He was a good person. He took their moms and them back to Animea and put them into an orphanage to where the orphanage started working on trying to figure out how to change them. Well, basically not just change them back, but make to where they no longer had lycanthropy. So, uh, yeah, that happened. But that's not the end of the story. As they start talking to the girls, a couple of the girls are very nervous. They're freaking out. One of them seemed like she's upset because they killed her mate, and she was not a werewolf. She was just a regular girl, but she had fell in love with her uh, captors, and she enjoyed their company after a while. Um, I don't believe that's the Nightingale complex. That's Stockholm syndrome, I think. Yeah. So yeah. So she fell in love with her guy. The others are some, like I said, are looking kind of worried. One looks like she's so thankful for them bringing her, and she starts talking to him about the others, and they're like, "What do you mean the others?" Well, they've come to find out that there were at least two other caves that werewolves were hanging out at that was taking people. In actuality, there was four, but they only knew about uh no, yeah, they only knew about two other ones. So the girl told them where to look for another one. They go and same situation. Yurichi flies above. This time, one of the wolves actually did attack Yurichi outside of the cave before he even made it there good. She Yurichi firebombed uh, the werewolf. They go inside again. Oh, magic missiles everywhere, fireballs everywhere, and they helped the people. Some of the girls seemed very happy that they did. Some of them looked sad because they had killed their killed their husbands or mates. And same thing, all of them are normal. Take the kids into the orphanage. Happened about that time. Um, the werewolves seem to be more alert. Um, the next time they had another one of the women knew where another set was, and she told them, and they go out find where that is, and they proceed to attack it. But this time the werewolves are a little bit more. There's a little bit more werewolves here. It looks like they heard about the other groups being attacked, and they're starting to try and take them out a little bit more. Um, Again, basically, it was a complete mess because, okay, werewolves in Pathfinder are only about a CR3. They were about CR10, so nothing that these werewolves could do could actually scratch them. But they thought they could try something. So, yeah, it wasn't meant to be. So, they get this group back, and during the night, after they did this, well, the next day, when they after they've brought all these people in and all this stuff, um during the night, a uh pack of werewolves come to the city. They all are bloodthirsty. They're attacking anyone they can see. They're just trying to tear up the whole city. And it just so happened that they were doing it in the southwest end of Anamea. Zehuri and Yurichi hears about it. They come to the area, and they see a bunch of, I want to say about 7 regular werewolves, and one large werewolf. And I'll go with large because it was taller than any other werewolf they saw. And even with it being hybrid form, it stood at least 8 feet tall compared to the rest of them that were a regular human height. And so they fought through them, and the large one kind of gave them a little bit more anger. I mean, a little bit more of a problem because um, it was she was upset over them killing all of her children, as she put it. And yes, the head of the pack was a um, female werewolf that was in charge of a bunch of male werewolves. And they did finally kill her. And what they figured out was, as the story went on, that she basically had came up with an idea of how the pack could just attack one at a time and take somebody and just constantly keep replenishing replenishing their um, numbers by having women be impregnated and have their children to where they could eventually just grow them up. I mean, like grow their own kids and create more and more werewolves. And if they wouldn't did that, it probably been a slow process. But given a few years, they probably would have had a lot of different werewolves. And at the time, I didn't even think about the idea of reproduction. But I know there are some books that say that some races have uh, a less amount of time of pregnancy than others. So some of these kids could have came out a lot quicker if they picked the right race, but they weren't really picky. They who looks up the sexual process of all the races? Who does something like that? Um, so that's what happened with them. In the end, Yurichi, after he finished his job and everything was somewhat taken care of. The kids were, like I said, an orphanage. The women were getting psychological therapy, even though there's not any psychologists there. But just trying to get them to be calmed down over some over the loss of their what they feel were their true loves, and some over the horrible attack that was done on them and the loss of their fathers or even brothers, or even husbands that they had, and how they were treated for years. And well, one was a year in my head, but yeah, weeks, months, and all this. um and they weren't, and some of them were still pregnant when they got them, so they had to also um figure out ways of trying to help the women in that way. Well, but after saying that, Zahiri got a job uh, from the Animea, because Animea is not a monarchy, it was a democracy. So there is a representative for each type of person in the city. And so they were requiring a person to join the council, and they decided to give that to Zahiri. Why? Because them wanted to have a place where they actually was able to sleep, and not just like they sleeping on the ground all the time. So once he joined the council, he had his own room that he could decorate whichever way he wanted to. And since he had his own room that he could decorate whichever way he wanted to, the DM just figured that he would. And The only thing that he asked for in his whole council room, which did require him to have some responsibilities of teaching the future wizards of the world how to be a magus like he is. We'll get into that some other time about his job as a magus teacher at that. But the only thing he asked for when it came to trying to decorate his room, and most of it came from Yurichi. And by that I mean nothing came from Yurichi. She stayed in the room and there was no bed in there. All he had was his chair, a desk, and I think a rug. That was it. Um that was all he wanted. They said he could decorate it any way he wanted. He left it to Yurichi. And she didn't get anything. And all he got was a desk and a chair. Well, that's the end of that story. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all later.